So thanks for making the video. It's excellent. I've got nothing to critique about the way that you have presented Girard or mimetic theory. You've crammed a lot into 10 minutes, and for that, it's very commendable. I would just supplement some things. Mimetic theory, the idea of imitation is being supported by mirror neurons, modern science. Mimetic theory is really a critique of a lot of modern understanding of the human being, modern autonomy, even a critique of the age of reason. We like to think of ourselves as rational creatures, but what mirror neurons and what mimetic theory before the discovery of mirror neurons is stating is that we're not so much rational creatures as we are mimetic creatures. That is, we mirror one another without consciously knowing that we do so. Great book on this is called actually Mirroring People, about mirror neurons. And so when we see somebody reach for a glass of water, we instinctively reach for a glass of water. When we see someone yawn, we instinctively yawn. And when we see someone point the finger of accusation, which as you point is the second aspect to mimetic theory, when we see someone point, we look. And if that point is made strong enough, if the accusation is made strong enough, we will all join in that accusation against our scapegoat. And the Bible does reveal this. You see this right in the first story of human beings, in Adam and Eve, where the serpent directs their desire towards the fruit. Before this, Eve never wanted the fruit. But the serpent says, yeah, you know what, that fruit, it's good for eating. And so she goes over and she convinces Adam, who didn't want it before, to now desire to eat the fruit. And so you see this process of imitation, and the serpent represents this idea of mimetic desire. So before you have the scientific understanding of mirror neurons, you have the whole process symbolically represented in the Bible. These authors were genius. I mean, how do you come up with this stuff? The serpent represents mimetic desire, and they all follow along with it because that's what humans do. We mirror desires from one another. And what ends up happening, if you remember, is that God comes to them and says, "Where are you?" And Adam ends up blaming Eve, pointing the finger at Eve. And I think Christian tradition has to fess up to the idea that we have followed Adam's accusation of Eve and said, nah, it's her fault. We've blamed her. Adam even accuses God for creating Eve. So Adam's pointing the finger everywhere. Eve points the finger at the serpent, and we just follow along in the accusations. It's not my fault. It's her fault, or his fault, or its fault. And we do this. This is human. And this is the anthropological statement that the Bible is making, is that we have this tendency to accuse one another. And I think with the Bible, the process that it's trying to get us to understand is the way that we do this. Even the people of God do this. You see this in the Bible. So in this way, the Bible has both myth in it, but also divine revelation that confronts us with our own mythical aspects, our own desires to accuse. And you see this ultimately in the person of Jesus. Jesus, who on the cross, he's suffering, he's dying, and humans have put him up there. And on the cross, he says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And why don't we know what we're doing? Because we're caught up in this mimetic mechanism of scapegoating. All other myths, Greek myths, wherever you find myths, they're all about getting revenge, mirroring this violence and accusation. So you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. Jesus says turn the other cheek. This is the anti-myth. And you can't get away from it. As much as atheists want to say Jesus is a mythical figure just like everyone else, this is where Jesus flips everything around and says the fundamental reality of the world is love, is forgiveness. Now, Christian tradition has followed in this way and not followed in this way. We can't scapegoat Christian tradition, just like we shouldn't scapegoat other traditions. Some of them come into this way of being, and some of them fall away from that way of being. The thing that's critical, I think, is this self-critique that the Bible has. and calls followers of the Bible, or Christians, Jews, to have, is this self-critique. Where in our lives do we just simply point the finger at other people so that we are not the ones being blamed, but we can blame them? And where do we follow along with the accusation? So those are my thoughts. And again, thanks for the video. Excellent stuff.